How you doing, man?
Chris, man, what's going on?
I'm good. I'm wearing my Top Gun shirt.
Oh yeah, did you get that at CinemaCon?
Yeah, I did. I did. Yeah, and that's where I saw the movie. It was amazing, man.
Wasn't that the best place to watch that movie?
Yeah, especially in like Dolby Vision with that on that massive screen at the Coliseum, and the audience
Yes.
was going crazy.
That was a movie experience I don't think I'll ever forget. Was just because that was the first time I watched it with an audience, and I texted the cast right afterwards. I was like, this movie to watch it with an audience, because we got to see it at the Paramount Theater, but it was pretty empty. It's like it's just all of us kind of alone, wearing masks, all spread out. You can feel the energy of like the anticipation of, we put so much into this movie, but to watch it with an audience that appreciated it as much as the people making it is like, it's kind of incredible.
We were hyped because the thing is, we saw the first 15 minutes of it last year, right? When it was supposed to come out in the fall. So we had seen like the first act, and everybody was like, and the rumor had been that we were actually going to see the movie last year. And then when it stopped, they were like, all right, well, that's you'll see it in like 2 months, because it was supposed to come out originally. And then everybody was, so when the air went out of the room, so people were like psyched to finally see it. And I mean, Top Gun is the first movie I remember consciously seeing. So for me, it was like this massive, massive thing to finally see it.
Oh, that's amazing. And now you've like dedicated your life to movies and appreciation.
Yeah.
So it's like
I would watch Top Gun. I would rewind the tape and I would watch it again as a kid. Like, it was just my favorite. Because I mean, it is the movie that my fiance was telling me that, like, every boyfriend she's ever had has made her watch Top Gun. Right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Also sensitive subject for you too. But at least their boyfriends had good taste.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay. So I got to ask you, first question. I mean, you must be a Top Gun fan, right? I mean, do you remember the first time that you saw it? Yeah.
First time I saw it was when I was 10 years old.
Oh, really? That's a good age.
Yeah. It's kind of probably a little early on the curve is my guess. But my dad showed it to me, and my dad is like you. It's like, I mean, he watched that movie until it broke. And when he handed me the VHS to put, and told me like, hey, this is a movie that's awesome. It's one of my favorite. You could just tell it meant something to him, and he would watch me the whole time while I was watching it. And it's just such a special experience, because I don't think over the course of time, there's only so many movies that do that to people. Sure. It's a rite of passage, and I think this movie, the original, is that for people. And I hopefully we have that with this one as well.
Well, I mean, they waited, Tom Cruise waited over 30 years to finally do a sequel to it. So let me ask you then, being on the set with Tom Cruise, doing a sequel to, I think the role that, I would say is his definitive role. We think of Tom Cruise and Maverick. It's hard to separate the two.
Yeah.
Could you feel the weight of it when you were on the set, though? Like, this was something extra special for Tom Cruise, even more so than a normal movie. Like, I imagine the preparation for this movie must have been intense, because you couldn't get anything wrong, right?
Yeah, Tom is. I think people think of Tom as a highly efficient and functional and effective person, but I don't think they think of him as sentimental and nostalgic. Yeah. He really is. When he put on his flight suit for the first time, at Lemoore and got into an F-18, you could literally, I mean, he and sitting there with Jerry Bruckheimer and like petting a jet, like they're like, oh my God, we're doing this again. And I think that's the most special part, is Tom has experienced more than 100 lifetimes worth of experiences. I mean, he's just, I mean, his life is just unbelievably fascinating. And yet he still takes moments like that in. And I think that's one of his superpowers, is he doesn't let moments like that pass by without really appreciating them. And there were hundreds on this movie where we'd look at each other and go, wow, this is, we're doing it. And that was the thing, is like Tom's appreciation, because when you're an actor shooting it and I'm stepping into that world, things are just really loud and kind of chaotic. You're just trying not to screw it up. You just don't want to get fired. And I think Tom is one of those guys who's like, hey, you're meant to be here. This is exactly where you should be. And, and lets you know, you're not going to get fired. We're going to make a great movie together, and appreciate this. Cause like, it's different than a normal movie. I think like, I was explaining to some of the cast, I was like, oh, a lot of times if you make a great movie, a movie that stands the test of time, that becomes great, you kind of don't know it's going to be great while you're making it, right?
Not at all.
But there was this amazing feeling on this movie where even while we were making this movie and the degree of attention and the bar in which Tom would he would go, hey, here's the bar. And we're not close there yet. Like, we're going to keep pushing. And you're like, okay, this guy's not going to quit until this movie's perfect. And it made us all feel while we were making it, have this appreciation of like, oh, we're making something great. And to know that while you're making it is especially a beautiful feeling.
I mean, I think that's probably why he's, widely considered. I mean, I consider him this way too, probably the greatest movie star of all time. I mean, he is, for 30 plus years. Okay. So I got to ask you, so I read that you originally auditioned to play Rooster, but that you and Cruz, the chemistry was so good, they created Hangman for you as a character. And that's kind of interesting because it does feel like almost as if he's got his own movie going on at the same time as everybody else's, right? In his own arc.
Yeah.
And very similar to Maverick, I find, actually.
Yeah.
People are comparing him to Ice, but I think he's actually a lot more like Maverick. And I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I actually find that your instincts there that was the design.
Yeah.
Was the first movie is a man facing it's a coming of age story. Top Gun 1 is a coming of age story. Top Gun 2 is a man facing his age story.
Yeah.
What we realized in the architecture of the original script is Rooster represents Maverick landing, right?
Yeah.
A guy who keeps flying fast, never looks to his wing, has to learn how to fly with other people and actually learn how to land, And for Hangman, the function of him in terms of the rocks and stones he'll throw at Maverick over the course of the movie is to represent who he used to be.
Yeah, sure.
And flying fast and being the best and not apologizing for being the best and the fun of being a naval aviator. And through our original conversations, when I was kind of just on the fence about whether I was going to do it or not, Tom watched the original movie with Joe Kaczynski and Jerry Bruckheimer and Chris McQuarrie. And they go, oh my gosh, we need that function. We need nostalgia becomes a lot harder if there's not a character that represents that in the original, that sort of feeling, that spirit. And so that was sort of their pitch, is that you represent sort of, you'll have the cockiness and sort of the antagonistic nature of Iceman, but they said your purpose is to represent the spirit of Maverick.
Absolutely. I mean, and I can feel that when I was watching the movie, and I think that's why it's so effective, because in a lot of ways, Rooster is a bit more like Ice, right? Like, and I could see, and your character is kind of like the hero in a lot of ways too, right? He has that heroic arc. Okay, so I also want to ask, I was reading about the original Top Gun, and Cruise and the whole cast infamously kind of went up in jets, and everybody was sick except even Cruise. Except for Anthony Edwards, apparently, who was just kind of had like a stomach made of like something, I don't know what. And I was just wondering what it was like for you. Did you get sick when you went up, and did you ever get used, like, how many flights did you make and what was that like? Because I feel like that's something none of us will ever experience,
Yeah. I mean, the interesting part is there's a difference between flying in an airplane. I'm like, I have my pilot's license now. I've done aerobatic stuff.
Oh, have you really? Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And it's really been amazing. There's a difference between being a passenger on an aerobatic flight and having your hand on the throttle and the stick. It's very different when you are purely on for the ride. And there was a moment I remember this turning point. It was just one day where I had the wrong breakfast. I remember flying in the Exer 300 and, we're flying over these areas in which you can kind of just have free reign to just do whatever you want with an airplane. And we're pulling all these, G's and, all these just wild aerobatic maneuvers. And I remember on the way back, I was like, I had not thrown up until that point. I was the only, I felt like I was the only one, or at least one of the few that I was like, oh, I'm going to get through this. I felt like the toughest one. And I lost my breakfast. And I remember from that point on, it just happened every single time. And I was really bummed out about it. And I didn't want to tell Tom because we have to do these flight reports every time we fly. You say, did you get sick? You know, how did you feel? What maneuvers did you work on? What scenes do you think it applies to? Like, did you work on any of the, you know, stuff that we're going to be doing in the F-18? It's all prep for game day. And I felt so embarrassed about puking that for a while I just like didn't tell Tom. He put this whole thing together like for that purpose. You know, everybody else got sick on the original, and I didn't want to feel like his dedication to this flight program was in vain. But then and then at a certain point you just own it, and he embraced the puke and rally. You know, in me, he's like, dude, that's even tougher to puke and continue acting and doing that, all that stuff. So, you know, Tom's a cheerleader, no matter if you're a puker or pukeless, you know, he's there for you. And, but it was, you know, it's just a testament to also what the actors went through on this movie. I mean, it's everybody gave everything to make sure the thing's great.
What you said is interesting, because that brings me to one of the good points of the movie and how I think it's actually different than the first movie, is that I never had an appreciation for the physical aspect of flying one of those missions, what it would be, you know, because you always see these movies and they're kind of flying around. You don't think that it's necessarily physically difficult, but this is the first time when you watch it and you're like, oh, this is an ordeal for somebody to go through physically. And this is the only time I've ever seen that talked about in a movie before or conveyed.
Well, that's like when you watch like Star Wars, for example.
Yeah.
Like people are just zipping around and whatever. And
like,
you just sort of like, you look at badass aerials in terms of just going, oh, they're moving around. But I think the physics of moving around on a planet with gravity is unbelievable. And also what you have to do in order to execute the mission. I mean, you get moments of that, like in terms of finding the target as the tunnels are closing. There are moments that, like, I thought that was such a well-directed moment. Yeah. Because that's what it feels like, is while I'm running the camera, while I'm trying to like make sure everything is clear on your face and masks are in the right place and your eye line and the sun position, the altitude, the airspeed, all that stuff matches and lines up. You are a one-man crew up there, essentially. You're also just fighting to stay awake and to keep your breakfast down
and passing out. I thought that was cool in the movie too, you know, just that you're showing these
guys. I mean,
you wake up and you have to fly.
Exactly. Well, that's the other thing that I thought they did a really good job of in terms of simulating that aspect is, again, nobody passed out, but the fighting, even just to fight G's, like to keep blood in your head as it's trying to be drained out, you leave and it feels like you got hit in the ear a few times. Like you're a little, you know, it'd be like standing on your head for 5 minutes. That's what it sort of feels like. It's like where you're kind of like out of it, you know, it's like, oh, okay, I'm feeling a little, like, that's what it feels like to just squeeze everything in your body to try to stay awake. It's a hard thing to, unless you experience it, it's a really hard thing to. Do you ever see like the Gravitron, like those things at a carnival?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, sure.
So it's like, you know, where they just suck you against the wall. It would just,
or you go up and then you lose gravity for like half a second or something like that.
Oh no, not one of those. The ones where it spins you around like a where it sucks you against the wall.
Yeah.
It would be like that, but like 10 times worse.
Whoa, geez. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where you just like, you can't do anything.
Hey, Chris, we're at time if you want to move to the last question.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So my last question is this basically, pretty simple. I think we're really used to CGI in movies. Yeah. And I think that for one of the things about CinemaCon when we saw it was that we hadn't seen this level of reality in a film ever again, like, well, ever for a really long time, because, you know, Marvel and everything's all CGI. Yeah. And I just wanted your opinion as an actor being part of something like this. Did you find it refreshing that, you know, it wasn't all green screen and stuff, that there was actually some reality to it?
I think Tom has taught me such an important lesson about how audiences feel a movie, right? And this movie interacts with audiences in a different way, because if you had CGI in this movie, sure, it would have been easier. Sure, you probably could have saved some money. You know, you could have done some things with a jet that are, you know, dynamic and cool, probably not accurate, but to do it for real, to put real actors, he always said, you can't CGI G's. You could probably try, but at the end of the day, when an audience is invested in the safety of the person, the man in the box, man or woman in the box, it's a different level of engagement. And for Tom, he's always trying to make audiences lean in and feel the movie. He's like, it's either information or emotion. Those are the only two things that are happening in a movie. And ideally, it's always emotion. And if you are feeling what the character is going through, and it's not just a passive, I'm just watching planes fly around. It's just a different level of there's just some things you can't fake. And I think that's why Tom has just doubled down on doing his own stunts. Like really, it's for the fans. Like it's really for the audience engagement to make sure people feel the stakes of what's going on in the story more than they ever would. It's a lot easier to not do it, but it's taught me an important lesson in terms of acting is putting your life on the line, putting your skin in the game in the name of entertainment is a very beautiful thing. And I think at the end of your career, if you can have an audience engage in a way that maybe you were in a little pain, maybe you went through something that was a little tough at the time, but it made an audience engage more. I think that's incredible. And that's what Tom has like dedicated his life to, is to thrill audiences in a way that may not be easy, but it's the thrill that the audience wants and deserves.
Oh, thank you very much, man. That was a great answer. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I love the movie, of course.
And yeah, please tell everybody.
Oh, I will. Thanks.
Right. Thank you.
Here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
What do we have here? God, here I thought we were special.
Fellas, this here's Bagman.
Hangman.
Whatever.
What the hell kind of mission is this?
Everyone here is the best there is. Who the hell are they gonna get to teach us?
Captain Pete Maverick Mitchell. Let me be perfectly blunt. You are not my first choice. You are here at the request of Admiral Kazansky, AKA Iceman. He seems to think that you have something left to offer the Navy. What that is, I can't imagine.
With all due respect, sir, I'm not a teacher. Just want to manage expectations.
What the hell? Good morning, aviators. This is your captain speaking.
And we're off.
Here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
We're going into combat on a level no living pilot's ever seen. Not even him.
You think up there you're dead. Believe me.
My dad believed in you. I'm not gonna make the same mistake.
Someone's not coming back from this.
Those are your pilots. Anything happens to them.
Smoke in the air!
You'll never forgive yourself.
No turning back now.
Come on! Having any fun yet?